Hi everyone, in this video we will make a simple to-do list app using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. This is a great project if you are learning JavaScript. By the end of this video, you will have a working app where you can add, complete and delete tasks. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So before starting to code, first let's talk about the prerequisite. You should have a basic understanding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you're not familiar with these technologies, then you should check out my playlist about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'll put a link in the description. You can definitely check it out. Now let's get started. So first, let's set up the project. So here first, I am going to create a new folder named to do app. Now let's open this folder into Visual Studio Code. So right click here and then click on show more options. Then you will find an option open with code. Click on it. So the folder is successfully opened into Visual Studio Code. Now here first let's create the index.html file. So I'm going to create a new file here, index.html. After this, create one more file called style.css for writing the CSS, and the last file we are going to create is script.js to write the JavaScript. Now let's attach these files into the HTML file. So first let's get a starting template using doc keyword. So just type here doc and then hit enter. Now we have a starting template of HTML. Now in the head tag, let's attach the CSS file. I'm adding a link tag. So type link and then you can see here the third option, CSS. Okay. So here we can see we have successfully attached our CSS file with HTML. And after the body tag, I'm going to attach the script here. So script and then type the path of our script, script.js. Perfect. Now let's install an extension called live preview to see the changes in real time. So this is the extension, you need to install it, and after installing the extension, right click here and then click on show preview. In the right side you can see the page is displayed. Now I'm going to start creating the HTML for our application. So first I'm going to create a container, and then inside this container, first let's add a h1 tag, to do list. After this, let's add a new division, and inside it I'm going to add an input tag, and after this let's add a button. Okay, and I'm adding a class called input section. So we will style it later. And after this division, let's add one more division, and inside this division we will show the tasks. So this division is for tasks, and inside it let's create an unordered list. So unordered list, and I'm adding the ID attribute here and setting the ID to task list, and let's add a sample task here. So adding a list item, and I'm adding a task like purchase apple. So here we have a title, then an input box with a button add, and at the bottom we have an unordered list to show the task. Now let's start writing the CSS. So first I'm going to target the container class. Let's first add a width of 100 VW, then making the display flex and flex direction, setting it to column, then justify content center, align items center. Let's add height property here and setting the height to 100 VH. I don't want the justify content center, so I am commenting it. Then let's style our input tag. So let's add a ID to our input tag, ID task input. Now let's target the task input ID, task input. First, let's increase the font size. So font size 22 pixel, then adding border of around 2 pixel, solid blue, or let's change the color to something like, let's make it aqua. Yeah, I think this is good. Now let's add some border radius. So adding border radius of around 15 pixel. I think we should reduce it to 10 pixel. Yeah, I think 10 pixel is good. And let's add a placeholder here. So adding a placeholder, add a new task. And let's add some padding here. So I'm giving the padding of 5 pixel. Let's increase a little bit more, 8 pixel. Yeah, I think this is good. 8 pixel. And let's decrease the font size a little bit. So let's make it like 16 pixel. Now I think it should be 18 pixel. I think 18 pixel is good. And let's increase the width. So now before this input tag, let's style one more class called input section. So input section, and first let's make the width 100%. After that, changing the display to flex, then justify content center, and let's add some margin here, adding margin of around like 8 pixel. Okay, I only want the margin in x-axis. Now let's add width here. So in the input tag, I am adding a width of around 80%. Yeah. Now let's start styling the button. So first let's add an ID here. So I'm giving the ID add task button. So targeting the add task button. First let's change the background color. So background color and setting it to aqua. And then I don't want any border here. So removing the border, setting the border to none. Now let's increase the width. So I want the width of around 80 pixel. Okay. So let's increase the font size. So increasing the font size to 18 pixel. Also let's add some border radius of around 10 pixel, and let's make the text bolder. So adding font weight property and setting the value to bold. Also I am adding some hover effect here. So and hover, I want to set the opacity to around 80% on hover, and also let's change the cursor to pointer. Okay, so here you can see the effect. Now let's start styling the list item. So first let's style the UL. So targeting the ID task list, and then first let's remove the list style. So I'm setting the list style to none. Then let's add some margin from top. So margin top and setting it to around like 40 pixel. Okay. After this, let's start styling the task. So I'm adding a new class here, task. So you can see here I have applied a new class to the li tag. Now let's target the task class. So task, added border radius of around 10 pixel. Now let's increase the width of this list item. So before changing the width, we need to change the width of this task class. So changing the width of the task division to 100%, it will adapt the width of its parent element. Then changing the width of the list item to 100% and adding the width of around 80% to the list item. Let's make it like 85. Yeah, I think 85 is good. Also, we do need to add two buttons here in this list item. So what I'll do here is like I will add a h3 tag here, and inside it we can add the task title, and after this h3 tag I'm going to create two more buttons here. So the first button is for completing the task. So I am naming it done. Then the second button will be delete. It will delete the task. For done button, I am adding here like done button. Then doing the same for delete button. So delete, then button. And for these two buttons, styling will be the same. We are just going to change their color. So for the done button, we are going to set the color to green, and for delete button, we will set the color red. So let's style the buttons. So dot task, and then I want to style the buttons of this task class. So the task class are target to the list item. So before doing this, let's add one more property here, justify content, and then I want space between these elements. Okay, but here you can see like this space between these buttons is not looking good. So I will wrap these two buttons into a separate division. I think 15 pixel is good. So I added the border radius of 15 pixel. Then let's add margin. So I only want the margin in x-axis. So leaving the y-axis to 0 and then adding a margin of 4 pixel. I think 2 pixel is good. Let's add some font weight, bold. Now let's change the background color. So first I'm targeting the done button. So done button, and we want the background color to be green, and I think this is good. Then let's target the delete button, background color red. Perfect. I think the delete button should be before the done button, the position. Yeah. And for the task, instead of having a border, let's add a shadow effect. So adding a new property called box shadow, then setting the values 0 pixel in y and x axis. Let's add here like 5 pixel. Yeah, so I think this is good. And also changing the border size of button, instead of 2 pixel, let's make it 1 pixel. Also, let's change the cursor to pointer, and then I'm adding the hover effect. So hover and changing the opacity to 80%. Okay, now we are done with the styling part. We will make the changes in the CSS file if required. It's time to make the app work with JavaScript. So open the script.js file, and here first let's grab the task input element. So I'm declaring a new variable called task input, and then get the element using document.getElementById. by id. Inside it, I'm adding the id of our element task input. Now we want to add the task when user clicks on add button. So make it happen. First, let's add a function on the click event of add button. So document.getElementById, by id, and then passing the id of our add button, add task button dot on click. Then I'm writing an arrow function here. First, we want the input value. Here is our task text, and we will grab the task text from the task input. So task input dot value. Now we have the task text, and first we check if the task input is empty or not. So if the task input is empty, then we will show an alert. So if task text is equal to empty, then show an alert message saying please enter a task. So now when I click on the add task button, so you can see nothing is happening because the alert pop-up is not supported here. So we need to test it in the browser. So here you can see I've opened the application. Now when I click on add button, then you can see the alert message. Please enter a task. And when I add something here, then you can see no alert message. Okay, so it's working fine. Also, return the function instantly here. So then it won't execute the remaining function. Now if user entered a task, then it should add a task in our unordered list. So what I'll do, from our HTML, I will copy this list item, and then in the JavaScript, let's create a new variable called task, and inside backtick, paste the HTML that we have copied from our HTML file. Let's format it. Yeah. Now see here, this H3 contains the title of our task. So let's make it dynamic. Pass a variable here, dollar, then curly braces, and inside it, I'm adding the task text. Okay. Now we need to append this list item inside our unordered list. So before this task variable, let's get our unordered list. So ul and then document dot get element by id, then task list, and now let's append this list item inside unordered list. So ul dot inner html plus equal to task. Now let's test it. So here I'm writing a new task. Go to market, and when I click on add button, then you can see here the task is getting added. But here you can see there is no space between these two list items. So let's add some space. So I'm adding margin top of around 4 pixel. Now let's test it again. Go to market, add, let's increase it a bit more, 8 pixel. Hello world. I think let's make it 12 pixel. Go to market. Yeah, it's fine now. Okay. Now let's create a functionality to delete the task. So in order to do that, we need a unique ID to track each list item. So we can get the unique ID from our unordered list. So let's declare a new variable here called ID, and then ul dot children dot length, ul dot children dot length plus 1. So it will return a unique ID. Suppose if the length of ul 2, and when we clicks on add button, then it will create a unique ID 2 plus 1 will be 3. And we also need to create a function called turn task, and it will take a unique ID. And after that, inside this function, let's first grab the element document.getElement by id and pass the unique ID here. Then changing the style dot text decoration and adding a line through effect. So line through, perfect. Now let's call this function here. So when user clicks on the done button, then it should call this function. So on click, then call this function done task and pass the unique ID here. Close this on click, and then also need to set the unique ID to the ID of this list item. So ID, and then passing the ID here. Now let's test it. So first let's add a new task. Go to market, go to the market, clicking on add. The task is successfully added. Now when I click on the done button, then you can see the task is marked as done. Now it's time to make the delete functionality. So let's create one more function called delete task, and it will also take the ID. Then let's get the element first. So document.getElement by ID, then dot remove. So that's it. Now let's call this function on delete button. So on click, then delete task and pass the ID here. So passing the ID. Now it's time to test it. So adding a new task, go to the gym, add. The task is successfully added. Let's mark it as done. And when I click on delete, so you can see here the task is successfully deleted. Let's remove this purchase Apple list items that we have hard coded in our HTML. So we don't require it anymore. So I'm removing this list item. Okay. Now let's test it once again. Go to the market, adding the task. So here you can see the task is successfully added. Let's add one more task. Hello world. So right now you can see we have total 2 tasks. So I'm making a task done and then deleting the second task. Okay. So all the functionalities are working fine. Now the last and very important thing here is, so suppose if I have added a bunch of tasks here. So the first task I'm adding here is like go to the gym. Then, so one more thing here, you can see like I have added the task here, but the input box still contains the text value. So we need to make it empty. So after adding the task, let's set the task input dot value to empty. Okay, let's test it. Go to the gym. Yeah, now you can see here the input box is empty. Go to the market. Hello world. Now the problem is these tasks are not getting saved somewhere. So when I refresh the page, the task will be vanished. So to tackle this issue, we can store the task into the local storage. So what we can do here is, like, after adding the task, at the end of this function, we can store the entire copy of our unordered list into the local storage. So let's do that. So local storage dot set item Then setting the key to tasks, and then the value will be ul.innerHTML. So we are going to save the entire HTML of our unordered list. Okay, so the saving problem is solved now, but after refreshing the page, we need to grab this saved HTML. So at the top of our file, let's grab the HTML from our local storage and then populate it into the UI. So let's grab the HTML. So I am naming the variable task HTML. Then local storage dot get item task, because the task contains the entire HTML. Then let's get the unordered list. So copying this code, or we can move this code at the top. Okay, so let's move this line at the top. Then ul dot inner HTML will be task HTML. Okay, now let's test it. So adding a task, go to the gem, then go to the market, hello world. Now I am going to refresh the page. So here you can see, like, even after refreshing the page, we still have the task because we are saving the data into the local storage. So great job. We have built a to-do list tab with JavaScript, HTML and CSS where you can add, delete and complete the task. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want the source code of this project, then please do check out in the description. You will find a link there. If you found this video helpful, then like this video and share it with your friends. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, then click the subscribe button and also press the bell icon. One more important thing, let me know in the comments section what is your thought on this and what project you want to see next. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Happy coding everyone.